Hello, fourth grade math. Welcome to a new week. This video is for your Monday lesson. We have finally wrapped up long division. Now that doesn't mean it's going anywhere. It's still going to be in your life, I promise. But we have wrapped up long division and we're going to move on and start a unit on fractions. So we have done a little bit of fraction stuff this year when we were still in school, when we were working on our daily math stuff. We saw some fractions on there. But fractions are just parts of a whole, okay? So one way we can think about it is with these really cool manipulatives, these tools called fraction cubes. If we were in school, I would be letting you guys play with these and do stuff with them, but we'll just make do here. So this one is just one solid piece. It doesn't break or anything. This represents one whole. You can think of it like a candy bar if you want. This is a whole candy bar. Okay, now I could take that candy bar, see, same size, and I can break it into pieces. So for example, I could break it into two pieces, and those two pieces, get my fingers out of the way, those two pieces are each equal to 1/2. 2 halves equal one whole, okay? Now maybe I'm gonna split this candy bar amongst 4 of my friends, okay? So it's still the same size, but I can break it into 4 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4. Each one is 1/4 of the whole, okay? 4/4 equal one whole, okay? And you could do that with 8s. You could do it with anything, really. We could do it in 12s. Maybe there's 12 friends. Oh, my cubes. But you get the idea. But one thing I want to point out, the more pieces you make, the smaller they are. So for example, if you had 8 friends to share this candy bar with, look how small the pieces are for each friend compared to if you had 5 friends. Their pieces are a little bit bigger, aren't they? So as our pieces or parts of the whole increase, the size gets smaller. So keep that in mind as we're going here, the 12. See how small those are? Yeah. Okay, so a few other things. When we write fractions, you put the parts on top, the number of parts on top, that's called your numerator, and the total number of parts on the bottom, that's called your denominator, okay? So this would be read as 1/4. I have 1 piece out of 4 total pieces. So one way that I like to remember which one is the numerator and which one is the denominator is I think about the letter D right here, okay? So I like to think is the denominator is the down below number. Denominator down, numerator on top, okay? If you don't already have your math textbook in front of you, why don't you go ahead and pause this video and go grab that real quick. Okay, so now that you have your book, I want you to turn to page 490. 490. Okay, and once you get there, it should look something like this. Okay, so let's go ahead and just start up here. We have some vocabulary. And we've just talked about all 3 of these words. So you have fraction, numerator, denominator. So fractions are just describing the parts of a whole. The numerator is the number on top of the fraction bar. The denominator is the number below or down below the fraction bar. So let's go ahead, follow along with me. I'm going to read about this little story problem right here, okay? So under where it says learn about it, it says, John helped his dad make a rectangular pizza for dinner. They used green and yellow peppers as toppings. You can use fractions to describe the pizza and the peppers. So in the first box, in the first box here, it says a fraction can describe part of a whole, which we've talked about. Okay, so here's the pizza that John and his dad made. It's a rectangular pizza. How many total pieces are there? If we count, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 total pieces, okay? how many of those 4 pieces have green peppers? Well, just one right here. So 1 out of 4 total pieces has green peppers. So as the fraction, we would write that 1 for the numerator, 1 part out of 4 total parts of the pizza has green peppers. So 1/4 of the pizza has green peppers. What would be the fraction then for the pizza, the part of the pizza that has yellow peppers? So if 1/4 of the pizza had green peppers, that would mean the other 3/4 of the pizza has yellow peppers. And you can see that, right? So if I'm asking yellow peppers, 1, 2, 3 pieces out of 4 total pieces. So we would write that fraction as 3/4. Okay. All right, so now let's look down in this box. Instead of the pizza, we're actually just looking at whole peppers now, okay? So we're still talking about fractions, but sometimes fractions can be describing parts of a group. So for example, those peppers aren't part of like a pan of brownies or a pizza, but they are a group of peppers, okay? So if I was to write the fraction for the number of peppers that are yellow in that picture, how many of the peppers are yellow? Go ahead and count them on your page. I see 1, 2, 3, 4. So there are 4 yellow peppers, okay? So there are 4 parts that are yellow in this group. For our denominator, we would have to figure out how many total peppers there are in the group. So I want you to count all the peppers, green ones and yellow ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 4 out of 7 total peppers are yellow peppers. So we would say this as 4/7. Okay? Now let's write the fraction for the green peppers. We already know our denominator because that hasn't changed. We're still looking at a group of 7 peppers. But what would our numerator be? So look at your picture there on page 490. Count how many green peppers there are. I see 1, 2, 3. So my numerator would be 3 out of 7 peppers are green. You would say this as 3/7. Okay? All right. So for today's assignment, you are only going to do 7 problems. And they start there at the bottom of page 490 and then go over onto page 491. So you're going to do these 3 problems down here and then these 4 problems over here. So let's look at the directions real quick. So it says write a fraction for the shaded part, then write a fraction for the part that is not shaded. So what they're going to do is they're going to give you pictures of either a group or like a whole, like pie or pizza or brownies or whatever you want to think. And you're going to look first at the shaded parts. So I'm just going to do a pretend example here. So let's say I have 3 boxes, okay? And this one is shaded in, okay? So the directions say to first write a fraction for the shaded part. So let's look. How many of them are shaded? 1 out of how many total? 1, 2, 3. So my first fraction for the shaded part would be 1/3, which is 1/3. Okay? Now for the second part of your directions, so you'd put a comma, the second part says to now write the fraction for the non-shaded parts. So let's count how many are not shaded. 1, 2. Okay, so our numerator would be 2. Now how many total parts are there? 1, 2, 3. That hasn't changed. There's still 3. So first the fraction for the shaded is 1/3. Next, the fraction for the parts that aren't shaded, 2/3. So of your 7 problems, you're going to have 2 answers for both for each problem. Make sure you put your fraction for the shaded part first, like the directions say, and then the fraction for the part that's not shaded. What would happen, let's say, I'm going to change my picture. Okay, now they're all shaded. Okay, so what would be the fraction for the parts that are shaded? 3 out of 3, 3/3, which equals 1 whole, right? What would be the fraction for the parts that aren't shaded? Well, there aren't any parts that aren't shaded. So our fraction would be 0 out of 3 total pieces. Okay? All right, so once again, you're going to do numbers 1, 2, and 3 on page 490, and then continue on 4, 5, 6, and 7 for 491. You're writing 2 fractions for each one. Shaded first, then the non-shaded. All right, have fun.